So, good morning, friends. A hearty welcome to Mr. Sriram Kannan, who is the MD of Class India, a German multinational manufacturing harvester combines in Morinda, Punjab. Sriram has a degree in law and commerce. He is associate member, Chartered Secretaries and Administrators UK, fellow member, Chartered Secretaries India, fellow member of Cost and Management Accountants India. Shriram is a performance oriented and successful finance professional with over 22 years of experience in several large German multinational organizations. Shriram, a pleasure to have you with us at the next edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. So, hearty welcome to you, Shriram.
Namaste.
Namaskar, Shriram. Namaskar. Yeah. Shriram, the last 6 to 7 months have been totally unprecedented, unpredictable. In fact, COVID has impacted global economy. The domestic industry in India is also at the moment in shambles. COVID has impacted more than 36 million people, and 207 countries have been impacted due to COVID. So, Shriram, my first question to you is, what has been the impact of COVID at Class in globally as well as Class in India? And since you have a manufacturing facility in Morinda, Shriram, what is the new norm? How are you coping up with the COVID scenario also in Morinda? So, if you could highlight these points, Shriram.
Good morning, Rajesh. First of all, I would like to thank VDMA and you personally for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts, people at large. For sure, COVID was unexpected. Even in the beginning of March, if you asked me, we wouldn't have thought of anything. Normally, in the beginning of the year, January, we used to have a meeting in our headquarters. And we went over there, and that time itself, people have already started talking about this COVID outburst that has happened in China and in other parts of the world. But even that time, we didn't take it seriously. We said, oh, India is pretty safe. We don't have any problem. But at that time, colleagues from China, they were talking that it's a big challenge. And for them, second, third week of January is even more important because that's the time they will have the Chinese New Year. Right. Which they said it's not going to be easy for them because of this situation. But at that time, it was not declared as pandemic. But they were telling they were managing it. But we were all not the exception to it. We got this pandemic declared in the last week of March. Unfortunate thing for classes, this is a season, and we were doing very good. Our business was at its upbeat. Unfortunately, we have to lock down the facility. And then we have to ask people to stay at home. Not only Class, all over all the organizations across India, it has happened. But fortunately, we could able to reach out to the Punjab state government where we are having our facility, and they are very, very prosperous as farm mechanization is concerned. So they could able to immediately respond to our request, and they allowed us to start opening up our facility. So even when the lockdown 2 was announced, that was from middle of April, they could able to give us a permission, but with lot of restrictions. Very, very challenging. They asked us to keep our people inside the factory, and we should provide them right from food, shelter, everything. Then only I can run the facility. So it happened, and then we could able to even learn from that time onwards. I would like to categorize into 3 major categories how the new normal in class is continuing. First, in German standards, normally people will shake hands to meet them, greet them, good morning and things like that. But now we have moved over to Namaste. I think this is being followed by most of the countries, and we are not new to that. So we started with Namaste. Certainly, we are following all the guidelines fixed by the government, starting from mask, social distancing, regular hand wash or sanitization, and staying away from people, even when we are doing our regular production. The next set of things, what we started doing, especially for the white collars, we started using the digital platforms and virtual meetings. We also started requesting all our white collars as much as possible work from home so that they need not come to the factory and still they can deliver the duty. Even in today's context, even though a lot of normalcy has come, even now we are encouraging white collars to work from home as long as they can deliver their duties without any big challenges. This is as far as white collar is concerned, and when it comes to any people that's entering the facility, we are very, very strict. We start having a regular health checkup, starting from the gate entry, temperature checks, and then all sanitization process we take care before we allow them inside the facility. And also we extend the employee welfare like canteen, staying at a distance, even tea coffees, we don't offer them with regular mugs. We offer them plastic cups so that it's one-time use. And then even when we are transporting the people by buses, staff transport, everything we are trying to comply with all possible precautions so that we can keep our people safe. Only if our people are safe, we can run our facility, because we are not IT company, we are a manufacturing company. We want our people to come to the facility and work. So we are giving them enough precautions that they also feel safe working in the factory.
Right, right. And Shriram, movement of your combine harvesters, if you're transporting, is that or getting it in the parts that are coming from your vendors, is that more or less normalized now, or are you facing some challenges there
See,
also?
as far as logistics is concerned, Rajesh, we don't have any problem.
Okay.
Because we always move the material in full container. So if you are moving the machine from my factory to my customers in south of India, then it all go in one full trailer load of material. So I don't have a challenge. When it comes from our vendors also, we try to consolidate all the consignments into one go, and we run a milk van from wherever our vendors are placed. So it's coming perfectly all right. The only challenge we initially faced were on the way when they were coming, there were a lot of restrictions and checks and things like that. So there were delays in logistics, but now a lot of things have normalized. I think we are in unlock 5 or 6, so pretty safe, no big challenges.
Very
As
good,
far as
very good.
logistics.
That's positive to hear that things have normalized for you, Shriram.
Yeah.
Shriram, the farm bills have been much in discussion. In fact, the new farm bill will
Yeah.
unshackle 43% of India that is engaged in agriculture. It is also called the watershed moment for agriculture in India. Now, do you see these new farm bills ushering in an era of modernization and prosperity for the Indian farmers, Shriram?
I would like to take some history on this, Rajesh.
Yes, please.
If you
Yeah.
see in 1991, if we remember 1991 as a watershed movement in Indian history, why
Right.
we call this? It's mainly because that was the year where the license Raj was dismantled. India
Okay.
opened up its market to international trade, investment, and competition. As a result of which, in the last 30 years, the GDP has been quadrupled, and even the per capita income, we have seen a pretty big increase.
Right.
In the first 40 odd years, from the date of independence to 1991 reform, per capita income only doubled. But after this watershed movement, the per capita income went more than quadruple.
Right.
However, an important group was left out on the process of reform. That's Indian agriculture sector. It still remained regulated by the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee,
Right.
and it will be remarkably assured as a watershed moment in India's economic history. And I would like to equate this the same way that has happened in 1991 for the industry. As this year marks the year where Indian agriculture sector were finally unshackled and set on the path towards modernization. Under the existing APMC Act, all agricultural produce was procured through mandis, to which farmers transport their produce, initially meant to protect the farmers, but these mandis later on into local monopolies. Transparent price discovery through auctions was replaced by collusions and price fixing. Therefore, the mechanism designed to protect farmers ended up severely harming them. Rent-seeking behaviors was common as commission agents and middlemen commanded substantial influence through being both buyer of the produce and provider of informal credits. Raising minimum support price was not the solution.
Right.
Experts have already pointed out that only 6% of the farmers are benefited from public procurement at MSP. However,
Right.
this led others to conclude that 94% of the remaining farmers must be selling their produce in the open market. To the contrary, these remaining farmers in fact did not have that benefit. Little effort was made in developing infrastructure for collecting close to the farm gate, nor were there enough incentives for investment across the cold chain and the food processing industry. As policy actively discouraged aggregation, produce, and bargaining power of farmers, the result is that process less than 10% of our food production and lose approximately 90,000 crores annually due to wastage of produce owing to a fragmented cold chain.
Right. Right. So that is really, I mean, to say thanks for the statistics, sharing these statistics also, Shriram. So, so this should usher in a new era for the farmers and hopefully prosperity for the farmers. I think my personal view is, Shriram, there is a lot of presently a little bit of misconception and misinformation about this bill, and that's why we are finding, I think even farmers themselves are not very clear, and perhaps the government could have elaborated a little more on the benefits of the farmers. But I'm sure as maybe as time goes by, the farmers will also understand that it is going to be huge benefit for them also. Yeah. Shriram, agriculture, now when we talk about the industry, manufacturing industry, we are seeing a lot of technological inputs, a lot of modernization coming in, artificial intelligence. However, agriculture is considered more as a traditional industry. Do you see scope of modernization, especially new technologies like artificial intelligence coming in, and also farming as a service? This concept is also coming up more strongly. Could you highlight a little bit? Do you see the role of technology helping or supporting the agriculture industry, Shriram?
Absolutely. Again, I would like to take little history, Rajesh. If you see in India, earlier days, we were only focusing on the deficit management. We didn't have enough supplies and production as far as agriculture is concerned. But today, India has transitioned from a food deficit nation to a surplus one. The focus of the policy now has rightly shifted to surplus management from deficit management. To this end, successive government committees, task forces, reports have all made the same recommendation. So I would like to talk about the three amendments that we are talking about, how it's going to help. First, the local mandi system was in need of a competition. Farmers require multiple avenues to sell their produce to wholesalers and retailers, which the APMC system earlier discouraged, and now they have found a solution. Second, contract farming needed an enabling framework to boost backward linkages with food processing industry. Contract farming would also allow farmers to plan investment decision with assured income in the form of an enforceable contracts. The regulatory with which the Essential Commodities Act was invoked also has been discouraged, and investments in the cold chain is now getting introduced. So these were the major concerns areas, and these were exactly addressed with the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill, which comprises of the Farmers Service Bill, the Farm Service Bill 2020 and the Essential Commodities Amendment Bill 2020. How does this work? Farmers will be able to enter into agreement with food processors to grow processable varieties and sell them at assured prices. Nor will they be restricted into whom and where they sell their produce. They can enter into agreement with farm service providers. This will give the farming as a service a huge upward swing. Several agri-tech setup operators in this space utilizing the technologies such as AI to provide crop intelligence as well as grade and other agricultural advanced production possibilities. Enabling technological intervention in Indian agriculture has the potential to transform this sector based on a strong foundation these reforms enable. Policy action in agriculture must be seen in conjunction with initiatives taken in the manufacturing sector, production-linked incentive, the tabling of the 3 labor codes in Lok Sabha that rationalize the labor laws at the central level, a thrust on ease of doing business, and inviting foreign investments are all aimed at generating jobs in manufacturing. Investment in infrastructure and the associated spillover effects will further drive non-farm job creation. The development of food processing industries creates rural non-farm jobs. Reforms in marketing have been complemented by a commitment to developing rural infrastructure. A 1 lakh crore agricultural infrastructure fund has been launched to facilitate the development of farm gate infrastructure that includes collection of centers and pre-processing facilities among others. A continued thrust on aggregating farmers through farmer produce, companies, organizations will increase their bargaining power and develop community asset under this AAF. Funds for the development of the animal husbandry sectors has also been launched to diversify the source of farmer income. India is already the largest producer of milk, the second largest producer of cereals, fruits, vegetables, and fish. This is when our productivity levels are well below comparable nations. Yet India's share in the global food export market stands at 2.3% with low additions. Therefore, as India's productivity level converge to global best practices, India can emerge as an important link in the global food supply chain. These reforms ensure that an enabling environment is created for India, becoming a food exporter powerhouse in the future. The next step is to bring the benefits of those reforms to the doorstep of the farmers. It is here where technology can create a bridge. With 43% of our 500 million plus strong workforce engaged in the agriculture, the lives of millions stands to be transformed as a result of these reforms, ushering in the area of modernization and prosperity of Indian farmers.
Right. So I think that is very positive, Shriram. I think technological intervention will help the agriculture industry. Shriram, one of the challenges faced by the agriculture industry is also one, of course, we have our farm size, landholding pattern, landholding size are very small in India. The other issue also, Shriram, is that the younger generation is not drawn towards agriculture. They are not really interested in carrying out farming. So how do you see this trend changing anywhere in the future? And what, because agriculture is one of the large, where our large workforce is involved in agriculture, how can government also play a role in this, Shriram, to make agriculture more attractive for the younger generation?
Yeah, I would like to look at this slightly differently, Rajesh. For sure, the agriculture kids are going for higher education and moving away from the agriculture. But after I got into the business and I start interacting with people, I'm seeing most of them are returning back to farming, dairy products, and interesting things. As a result of which, I am seeing learned farming community is growing. With learned people joining the farming community, we can drive technology and for sure improve the productivity in the farming, etc. I strongly believe the only way of increasing the farmer income is like the above said laws, what I've explained, going to take us forward, integrating the processed food, forward integration, and also will increase the attractiveness for the younger generation. And I'm also started seeing a lot of initiative from the government, especially in the Punjab region, Rajesh. There are a lot of agricultural universities are coming up forward, and they are doing a lot of researches to have right from the breeds, how to have advanced breeds to get a higher productivity till the last leg of harvesting and then food processing. And I'm seeing a lot of encouraging agricultural background kids going into those schools learning and then coming back. And that's really a positive trend. And at least I'm seeing this positive in Punjab, Haryana, and I'm sure this will grow across India in the days to come.
Very good. That means also, Shriram, that the university is quite well known. So, as a company manufacturing agriculture machinery, Shriram, by the way, I don't know if you can notice, I'm wearing a Claas combine harvester pin today. But as an agriculture machinery manufacturer, Shriram, what is the training that is required? Now, when you're selling a machine, Shriram, does the user of the machine require any skill sets? Are you giving training? Are some institutions also involved in helping the development of or skilling of the farmers or the users, Shriram? And maybe one more, if I may ask one more question, Shriram. Normally, is it the farmer who's directly buying the machinery, or it's more like a cooperative movement or a leasing company? If you could just highlight those factors also.
Yeah, very good question, Rajesh. Actually, our end customers are not farmers because our machines are very highly capital intensive and their utilization may not be throughout the year. So we normally work through contractor workforce. So the contractor customers buy the machine from us, and they are not into agriculture. They may be having some agricultural background, but they are only in the business of taking these machines to all the agricultural farmlands and using it for harvesting. And we also strongly believe our future customers are the people in the agricultural universities. So we have a very strong collaboration with all agricultural universities across India. We have more than 12 to 15 agricultural universities. We have tie-up, and we do establish our training centers, and in each college, a very well established, well equipped with all our latest technology being taken in that colleges. Even Punjab Agricultural University has a curriculum for our combine in their curriculum, and we give them lot of materials to take care of that. So we are cooperating with lot of universities. So we are training the students in our mission. So by the time they come out of the university, they are already trained enough to take care of our missions. This is as far as the customer from the future customers, and even our existing customers, we take them to the same facility in the universities and showcase them all our products and train them. So they also get trained how to use. For sure, training is very, very critical for the success of our mission. Because if you don't use the machine and the proper settings, depending on the crop, the productivity and the output of the machine, you will not get the desired result. So training is very critical, and we make use of these university relationships to train the future customer, that's the students, as well as our existing customers to get best out of our machines.
Right. You mentioned earlier about that the machines are generally capital intensive, Shriram. So what role does the finance institutions, the banks play? Are they quite open to lending for such agricultural implements and machineries?
I am not too sure about other manufacturers. For sure, Claas having their presence in the global presence of more than 110 years and their presence in India for more than 30 years, we do have financial institutions and banks signed with us. So they are extending their funding. They expect the investors to invest initially 10-15% of the machinery value. Remaining, they fund them over a period of 4 to 5 years of EMI. So we have established the relationship. So whichever customer comes to us, they should only show their interest to buy our product. Then we will support them to get the machine and start working on the machine.
Yeah. During this, in this pandemic period, Shriram, in fact, the rural economy is what has really helped Indian economy to some extent. And I was hearing the sale of tractors is also, in fact, we are looking at perhaps record figures this year, despite of the pandemic. Has that also converted into sale of combine harvesters? Do you see an upsurge in sale of combine harvesters also this year, Shriram?
Absolutely, Rajesh. The only industry as of now which is really flourishing, I would like to say, is the agriculture industry. It's really a good trend. There are many reasons. I would like to thank the rain god also. It has come at the right time, and almost all the rivers and dams are all full. If you see the southern state, which was always a fight between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, Karnataka is not giving water, Tamil Nadu is really suffering and things like that. Now the situation is the other way around. They are telling stop the water. So it's really overflowing. So we are seeing all these positive trends, and that's driving the demand for the product. We are finding it difficult to ramp up to the demand from the customer side, mainly because our supplies from our vendors are getting hampered because of pandemic. They couldn't able to open their facility, the employees are not coming and things like that. Still we are managing to get our parts and still manufacturing and supplying. The demand, I would like to say, almost at least double for our product in this year is what I would like to say.
Oh, very good, very good. One of the impacts of the pandemic also has been the supply chain disruptions, Shriram. As class, what is the level of localization you are doing here in India, Shriram? And when we had the supply chain disruptions, did it impact your production also, or what is the level of imports actually?
Yeah, it's not a big challenge between imports versus local supplies, Rajesh, because whenever we develop a new product, we use a lot of imported components to speed up the development. But once it gets into series production, then we will start localizing that, because this industry, whether we like it or not, very cost sensitive industry. So at some point of time, we cannot continue using the imported products. So we will localize it. So in my product, if you see almost 80% plus, we are only buying it in India. We are not importing it. There are some critical components still we are importing. So it's not majorly imports as a problem, but even sourcing within India was a big challenge. The biggest challenge is where we are having our major customer vendor base in 3 major locations. One is in NCR, being an automobile hub, and where we started our initial production facility. So we have a lot of our vendor base in that region. The next region where we have our vendor base in the Maharashtra region, Pune, Mumbai, this region, because that's also another automobile hub, and also some in the southern, like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Unfortunately, these were the 3 major states where even today the count is very high. So we were really finding it difficult to source the parts, and also the vendors were finding it difficult even to get people. NCR region had a heavy challenge as far as the migrant workers are concerned, but slowly we could able to bring them back and stabilize the supplies. So we also almost went to zero production in the month of March, but then we slowly started ramping up in May, June, and then now we are moving towards utilizing our fullest capacity from November onwards.
Okay, very good. The last question, Shriram, is that actually with so many unforeseen factors colliding together, it is quite a challenge for the CEOs also. What I would request you to share is 2 or 3 tips from your side, Shriram, on how CEOs can navigate their boat in the stormy water of COVID. I think these tips will be very useful for the German industry, the CEOs of German companies, and for our audience also, Shriram.
Yeah, Rajesh, if you see in a regular interval of span, we do face some challenges or other downturns in the business. So we managing directors or CEOs should be always prepared to face challenges. The only difference is it's not always the same. Therefore, for the current pandemic, my 3 major tips are: I strongly believe, the first one is I strongly believe the organization is as good as people. So I would strongly encourage people to follow all the safety precautions very seriously without any exceptions. I would like to quote the words from Jack Ma of Alibaba, where he says, for the year 2020, the only profit we will make is to be alive. And that's possible only if we follow all the safety precautions and stay healthy. I strongly believe this is the first thing we should follow. I also feel the next topic is, I think we should not panic. For most of the problems, sometimes the time is the healer. Even statistics nowadays shows that the growth is coming back step by step. We should be determined in our goal, and the hard work towards the same with patience will help us to achieve the goal where we want to go. The last one is, in this pandemic time, we should support each other is what I strongly believe. It can be our vendor partner, it can be our dealers, we should treat them as equal. I would like to give my example being a product company. When the pandemic hit, the biggest challenge every of my vendor faced was a cash flow issue.
Cash.
This we have heard it, even the governments were talking about cash flow issues. So what we started doing, we said, okay, we will offer discounting scheme. Instead of paying it in 30 days, we will pay them in a week or 10 days time. So the vendors were very happy with the way we started counter offering them to overcome the pandemic, and certainly this will pay back to us. The moment I start paying them the cash flows, once they started the supplies, they start showing priority to me compared to other customers. So it's always a give and take. I strongly believe charity starts at home, people will say, but I also say even the good deeds can start from home. So I always feel that we should share good things, whatever is possible, and encourage people to grow with us, and certainly people also will reciprocate that. That's my three.
If I were to sum it up, Shriram, you spoke about the people, you spoke about having patience in this difficult time, and third is collaboration, working closely with your vendors, working closely with your suppliers. I think it's more like one family working together and trying to understand the difficulties what the others are also facing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Shriram, it was an absolute pleasure interacting with you, and also trying to understand a little bit on the agriculture scenario in India. And thank you for sharing the statistics and sharing your views. On behalf of the German Engineering Federation, VDMA, wishing you and the team in Morinda in Punjab a lot of success, and as hopefully the agriculture is one of the pillars which is doing well in the Indian economy. I'm sure that will also have a positive outcome for your business. So wishing you good business in 2021 also, Shriram. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. I would like everybody to stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shriram.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.